Lebanon is facing an economic and political crisis, and reportedly under the strong-arm control of Hezbollah, it's a country on the brink of disaster. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows how the Iranian-backed terror group is a major factor behind Lebanon's collapse.
Once known as the Switzerland of the East, Lebanon is experiencing its worst economic and societal crisis in modern history.
Hezbollah is using civilian neighborhood to store their weapons. And as a matter of fact, they are firing from civilian neighborhoods. They use the civilian neighborhood as a shield.
That's been documented numerous times, which leads to suspicion after the massive explosion that rocked Beirut.
If this is a Hezbollah warehouse, which I cannot prove now, this will be a very serious allegation against Hezbollah, and maybe more political pressure that Hezbollah will end its role as a military power in Lebanon.
Adding to suspicions, in a 2016 speech, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah laughed as he talked about blowing up ammonium supplies in Haifa and murdering Israelis. He described the possible blast in terms that were eerily similar to the explosion in Beirut.
The nuclear bomb I'm talking about is when a couple of our missiles falling on ammonium warehouses in Haifa's port will lead to the same effect as that of a nuclear bomb. When the missiles fall on the warehouses in an area with a population of 800,000, tens of thousands will die.
And the Hezbollah problem is not just limited to the fact that you've got a terrorist organization funded by Iran with a massive arsenal of rockets and precision-guided munitions that face Israel. The problem of Hezbollah is also a financial one.
Jonathan Schanzer of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies says Hezbollah's infiltration has cratered the Lebanese economy.
This includes money laundering, terror finance, and corruption. And basically, Hezbollah has corrupted and corroded what was once a vibrant banking center. It has now eaten it alive. And there is indications that the banking sector is on the verge of collapse.
Religious loyalties and corruption also play a part.
You can't blame it entirely on Hezbollah. Again, some of this is good old-fashioned greed.
On a recent visit, the French foreign minister urged Lebanese leaders to put needed reforms into place. And even before COVID, Lebanese protesters filled the streets, railing against the failing economy in their country.
The Lebanese government is barely existing, and things are going from bad to worse. This bailout that is likely needed for Lebanon could exceed the largest bailout that we've seen to date, which is Argentina.
COVID-19 led to more food shortages, prompting massive handouts like this one, organized by a Christian political party and paid for by a wealthy Lebanese. Now, more protesters are turning on Hezbollah.
Our message is heard. The French and the Americans are receptive. They have promised us to work on implementing the UN Security Council Resolution 1559, which calls for the removal of all illegal weapons from Lebanese and non-Lebanese militias, especially Hezbollah, that has hijacked the Lebanese state.
Our message is that we respect the Lebanese constitution and its implementation and the implementation of Resolution 1559, and that Iran does not dominate Lebanon.
And since the blast, the public outcry against Hezbollah has been unprecedented, like this journalist.
The primary suspect is Hezbollah more than anyone else in the world because Hezbollah uses ports and all the other Lebanese government facilities in order to acquire weapons. Hezbollah has been using Beirut's international airport, the Martyr PM Rafik Hariri Airport, for years. It has also used the Beirut port to transport these weapons.
And the Lebanese army, which receives financial help from the U.S., has not taken action.
The Lebanese armed forces don't seem to be willing to counter the Hezbollah forces. They're not willing to remove any of the 150,000 rockets that Hezbollah has amassed in the country. Lately, the Hezbollah has been amassing an arsenal of precision-guided munitions, or PGMs.
Schanzer says the opportunity for Lebanon's people to drive out Hezbollah will be when the economy collapses. The aftermath of the massive explosion could become the time to act. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.